There's a new Batman in town, and his name is Robert Pattinson. Yes, Sir Cedric Diggory and Edward Cullen is playing Batman. I thought I'd have a problem with that because I just couldn't get past those characters and the fact that Robert Pattinson looks so damn young. But I went in with as open a mind as I possibly could muster. Yeah, I saw this film last Friday in the evening, and amazingly, I was able to stay awake through the whole movie because I was tired, and I only had to do one bathroom break. Now, when I did leave the movie, I needed to get a shave and a haircut because this is a long movie. A long movie. I don't know what director Matt Reeves was thinking, that he needed to have nearly 3 hours. I think it was 2 hours and 54 minutes. I don't know why he felt the need to have so much time to tell this story, because it's not that complex a story. Matter of fact, the story is similar to, if you're watching the excellent TV show Reacher, or streaming the excellent show Reacher on Amazon Prime. It has the same kind of beats as that story. Although that is a TV show, so they pad it out to, I think it's 6 episodes. This is not a story that requires 3 hours of running time. And I think it would have served the film a lot better if they had cut off maybe a half hour, 45 minutes. Maybe he felt like he needed all that time to develop all the characters that he throws into this film, because this film is like loaded with most of Batman's rogues gallery. You've got the one character who I thought was going to be featured in the film because he's in the trailers. You've got Colin Farrell playing the Penguin. And Colin Farrell is unrecognizable in the role. He does a great job. You would think he'd spent hours and hours studying tape on Robert De Niro. There were certain moments where I felt like it was Robert De Niro under all the makeup. And I'm a huge Robert De Niro fan, so I love that take on the Penguin. But ironically, the Penguin is just, even though he's featured in the trailers, he's just a secondary character. He doesn't get a lot of screen time. He's just like a henchman. The great John Turturro, who I haven't seen in some time, playing Carmine Falcone. Paul Dano as the Riddler. And he's not the Riddler that I'm familiar with, but there's so many things in this movie that I'm not familiar with that I let it go. He's more of a Seven or a Zodiac type of villain. Not the prankster that we know from previous Batman films. Okay, I'm looking at you, Jim Carrey, and I wasn't a fan of your Riddler either. But yeah, he's not the jokester. He's a serial killer, this guy. Because all the things that he does in this film, I would see the Joker doing, not the Riddler. But okay, be that as it may, I appreciate the fact that they did not give us the Joker yet again. Although this guy, he doesn't come off as the Riddler with his costume. This Riddler is played more like a Oath Keeper, 3%er, January 6th rioter, militiaman type of guy. And Paul Dano is great. The problem is we don't really see him interact with Batman except through cell phones and videotape and little notes that are left for the Batman. But there is one scene, it's one of the best scenes in the film, and it steals from The Dark Knight, in my opinion, where Batman is speaking to the Joker behind bars or in a holding cell. There's a similar scene to that, and it's mesmerizing. He delivers a monologue to Batman similar to the Joker did in The Dark Knight, and you can see Paul's Riddler slowly tearing down Batman. Batman's trying to be cool. He's just looking, giving him the side eye, and then Paul Dano just keeps building and building, and eventually he gets Batman slamming the glass and demanding what's going on, and he gets Batman to come out of himself.
I've been trying to reach you. Fire the gun!
It's a great scene. And then you've got Selena Kyle, Catwoman, played by Zoe Kravitz. Zoe does a great job. I mean, she is an amazing actress. But for me, she doesn't have the physicality that I would want to see in Selena Kyle. She does a great job acting out the part. I just don't think she fit the part physically. I think Catwoman needs to be able to look Batman directly in the eyes, because man to woman, woman to man, they are equals. And I like to see that in the physical relationship as well. In this movie, Batman's leaning down, looking at Selena, and Selena's looking up at him like he's a giant. And that kind of took me out of it. You look at Anne Hathaway, who wouldn't have been my first choice as Selena Kyle, but I think she killed it. She met Batman on a physical level. Same thing with Michelle Pfeiffer. I said it. She met Batman on a physical level. Zoe Kravitz is not able to do that. Speaking of Catwoman, I really would like for them to get back to her being not so much an anti-hero partner to Batman, but a villain to Batman. I mean, not a villain where she's killing people and, not like the Joker or the Riddler or the Penguin or whatever, but after Michelle Pfeiffer did the role, it seems like every Catwoman we've seen on screen has been more of a partner to Batman, maybe an annoyance to Batman or a frustration to Batman, but not really an antagonist to Batman. I'd like to get back to that Catwoman, if we could, please. Jeffrey Wright plays Commissioner Gordon. Now, he's not part of the Rogues Gallery, but just another character that gets screen time in the film. He gets substantial screen time, and let's just put it out there. Jeffrey Wright, I don't think I've seen him in any role that I didn't like him in, so that's a given. I think the only role I haven't liked him in is those commercials he does for the Cloud or Microsoft or something. But no, he's brilliant in this as well. He's great. And then you have the Batman himself, Robert Pattinson. This is where it gets a little bit more complicated, folks. I was prepared not to like Robert Pattinson in this role. I just don't like this new thing. Well, it's not so much new, but where the producers cast young, presumably so that they can put out a lot of films with the same actors as they start to age, but you get a lot more shelf life with them. I get it. I just did not see Robert Pattinson being able to pull off playing a billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne. Then I saw Tenet, and I saw Pattinson in that role, and I was like, okay, maybe he could do it. All right. So when I see Batman on screen for the first time in this film, I'm thinking, you know what? He looks pretty good in the suit. I gotta admit, he's got probably the best jawline for the cowl, and I like the hood. I like the whole mask thing going. If you go back and examine the Batmans that matter, so you're out of it, George Clooney. I liked Michael Keaton's costume, but I just thought I hated the fact that he couldn't turn his head without turning his whole upper body. I'm like, what kind of combat can you do in an outfit like that? Christian Bale, who's still up there for me as Batman, his mask looked too bulbous to me. I didn't really like the design of that. Ben Affleck, that's the Batman to beat right there. Although his costume, I just thought it was too bulky and too padded. But we give Ben Affleck a pass because of that warehouse scene. You know what I'm talking about, right? You know what I'm talking about. Robert Pattinson in the costume looked really nice. Looked good. A little thinner than I would have preferred, but I had no problem with that. I loved Robert Pattinson as Batman. I will say this. When he first appears on screen, for the first 20 minutes, he doesn't hardly have any dialogue. I don't think he has any dialogue. And while it made him seem more threatening, more of almost like a force of nature, there's a scene where he's walking into a crime scene behind Commissioner Gordon, and he doesn't say a word. He doesn't speak at all for like 20 minutes. And he comes off as very threatening, almost animalistic, but also a little bit autistic, if I may say. This Batman is just slightly less brutal than Ben Affleck's Batman. Ben Affleck's Batman wasn't afraid to take dudes out. He wasn't afraid to kill. And that warehouse scene where he's spearing dudes with his grappling hook and pulling them with crates and stuff like that, that's brutal. This Batman is brutal, but he still has a moral center. He's not shooting or stabbing folks like Ben Affleck's Batman. As a matter of fact, there are a couple of scenes where mild spoiler, he tells Selena Kyle not to use a gun or you'll become just like them or something like that. I would agree. I love guns, but you don't just go around shooting people. But that doesn't mean he won't hesitate to break a bone or fracture a jaw or electrocute your ass if he has to. There's a great chase scene in this film that involves one of the baddest Batmobiles on screen. Christian Bale's Batmobile was bad. It was more of a tank, though. This is like a muscle car that is got like the arc light capability built into it. There's a scene that you've seen it in the trailers where Batman is chasing the Penguin, and you see, I'm not spoiling anything here, you see it in the trailer where the Penguin gets overturned or he rolls the car and Batman's walking to him, and Michael Giacchino's awesome score, just those two notes, builds and builds and builds. And the Penguin, who's a hardened criminal, is looking like, oh, I done f***ed up today. And it's hilarious. Batman leans down, looks into the car window of the overturned car, as if he's saying, peekaboo, motherfucker. So yeah, Robert Pattinson's Batman is no joke. But his Bruce Wayne sucks. I say that because Robert Pattinson is the first actor that portrays both Batman and Bruce Wayne as the same. Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne is indistinguishable from his Batman. That is to say, he's just as brooding, just as sullen and dour and threatening as, well, not threatening, but as moody, let's put it that way, as his Batman. And that just did not work for me. First of all, Robert Pattinson was able to work for me in the costume because you cannot really see how youthful he looks. When he's out of costume as Bruce Wayne, which is not that often in the film, which I didn't like that either, he has this emo haircut. He comes off as just a unlikable person because he's so moody. Now, this is a Batman that's been in existence for nearly 2 years at the beginning of this film. There are hints given to that because there is I'm not going to spoil anything here, but there is a final scene, a scene that happens towards the end of the film, where there is a visit to Arkham Asylum, and we do see some people that Batman tangles with regularly that are already behind bars. That indicates that he's been Batman for a while. All right? So, I need to see a Bruce Wayne that portrays the opposite of Batman, making it clear that there is an ego and an alter ego. I need to see a duality. That, to me, is what makes the character interesting. You don't get that with this Batman. Plus, he just looks, he looks like a young kid. Actually, let me go back. When we first hear Batman talk, Robert Pattinson's Batman, I had to get used to that voice. The good thing about it is that he doesn't come off like he's been swallowing marbles or shouting all night like Christian Bale or Ben Affleck. He has a normal voice, that's fine. But when he first starts talking, he sounds like a prep school boarding school student on the East Coast. A high lilting voice. I'm like, that's not Batman. But I don't know what happened. As we see more and more Batman in this movie, it just started to click for me. It started to work for me. So again, Robert Pattinson as Batman, great. As Bruce Wayne, No, not at all. He might as well have stayed in the suit the whole time. I would have preferred that. I need to see a Bruce Wayne that shows me how Bruce Wayne is tormented by trying to be human outside of the suit and letting his demons go loose when he's in the suit. That's the duality that was missing in this film. Now, some people will say to me, well, I like this new version. I like what they're doing here. Or, this is the Bruce Wayne that's getting used to being Bruce Wayne. He's not used to being Bruce Wayne. Well, I say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Those same people loved Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne / Batman, and we didn't get that. We didn't have that lack of duality with Ben Affleck's Batman, and he was the shit. So don't tell me that. Okay, I want to hear it. Same thing with Christian Bale. The Dark Knight is heralded as one of the best Batman movies ever. As far as I've seen, we got a duality. We got Bruce Wayne being a playboy, getting the draws, laughing occasionally, telling jokes. But when he was in that suit, he was a demon. That's what makes Batman interesting. I look at Batman kind of like Bruce Banner. Ego, alter ego. Calm, mild-mannered, but still human. When he changes, the demon is set free. What makes this movie worth seeing, besides all of the good performances, besides the joy of seeing that Robert Pattinson can pull off playing the Batman, again, not so much Bruce Wayne, but the Batman, which is, that's the center attraction, I guess, and he pulls it off. Besides all that, it's just a great neo-noir thriller. It's more like Matt Reeves had a conversation with Kevin Fincher and said, what was it that made Seven work? And he kind of incorporated some of those elements. A little bit of Saw is in this film too. And you'll hear that in other reviews. Yeah, okay. I didn't really need all of the, and it's not too gory. I don't want to give you that impression. But yeah, there's scenes where people are under duress and being under torture, or being forced to do things that are kind of grotesque or experience grotesque things. But I don't think there was a lot of blood, not that I remember. But it's a great thriller. It's like watching a good thriller that happens to have a guy in a superhero costume. Again, think Jack Reacher. If you're watching that show, and picture Jack Reacher wearing the Batman outfit. That's pretty much what this movie is. And I love the Reacher program. God, I just dated myself for saying the word program. I love that show. And that's what we kind of get here. Although it's very layered. You got to really pay attention. I'm not sure I caught all of the beats, but ultimately it did not matter. I tend to be a stickler for canon, but I guess I'll say if you do it right, if you alter things and it seems like it has a purpose, or if you make it where it seems like it was necessary to tell your story, I'll bend. I was able to bend on the fact that, Tony Stark was the creator and inventor of Ultron in the MCU. I get it. They didn't have time to set up Ant-Man and all that. They didn't have the rights or the script for Ant-Man, or they wasn't even thinking about Ant-Man as a character at the time. But they wanted to introduce Ultron, so I get it. They do a lot of revisionist storytelling with Bruce Wayne's history or Bruce Wayne's past. The fact that I did not cry foul at that is a testament to what they did and how they did it. There's a scene where Bruce, in his emo state, with his Spider-Man 3 emo Parker haircut, and he's sitting in a hospital room with Alfred, who is excellently played by Andy Serkis. And a lot of stuff is revealed about about Bruce Wayne's past. And it really works for the film. It's a little convoluted, but it works. The story itself it's somewhat complex or convoluted, but it was so engaging or so interesting that I put it on myself that I didn't understand what was going on. I knew it was all up on screen, so I put it on myself that I didn't understand a lot of what was going on. They do interweave a lot of stories. I can't really tell you what I'm talking about, but the Riddler is motivated by wanting to mete out justice to the the wealthy and the glitterati and the political machine. I'll leave it at that. And in able to do that, they kind of interweave a lot of revisionism to make that happen. The only other criticism I have about this movie is, surprisingly, the cinematography. Can't remember the DP's name. I know he's done other stuff I've seen, and I didn't have the issue that I can't remember the movie, and I didn't have the issue that I had in this film. It's way too freaking dark, man. And I know that's a theme lately with Batman. Speaking of which, it's almost like this movie, like Matt Reeves spoke to Kevin Fincher about the thematics of this film, the themes, in terms of it being more of like a serial killer film. And I think he spoke to Christopher Nolan about how did you make Batman so dark? I thought DC was going to start going more brighter. I thought they were going to start getting lighter with their movies, but this is going right back in the direction of Christopher Nolan. Not necessarily a bad thing, but the cinematography was it was muddy. It was muted in color. And I understand why someone would make that choice, because it's a Batman movie. But again, I look back at, Justice League, for example, and I wasn't a huge fan of that film, either version. But it had color, right? It did have color. This is just really dark. Some of the shots even seem soft in terms of the lensing or focus. Like the back focus was off. The hallway scene, which I was expecting to be one of the best scenes in the film, you could hardly see anything. It was intended or made to look like the only lighting came from the gunfire, the muzzle flashes. I feel like in the trailer, we were able to see it a lot more clearer. I don't get that choice either. So I was disappointed in the cinematography. The film was Dune. I thought that cinematography was brilliant. Dune was one of my favorite films of last year. So very disappointed in the cinematography in this film in terms of lighting. Framing and camera work, great. But I couldn't hardly see stuff. Another smaller issue I had with the movie was it does something that I rarely like. It gives us setup with voiceover. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the movie starts off with a drawn-out exposition done in voiceover. That's what I seem like I remember that. Doesn't go on too long, but to be honest, with Batman, that kind of inner monologue does work. So it wasn't that bad, to be honest. So I get it. But then there's a scene at the end of what I will call the climax of the film, nearly 3 hours later. And they utilize voiceover. And in this case, it doesn't work for me whatsoever. It's like, let's get this moving. We don't need this. If you remember, or if you watched The Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Disney Plus, I think in the last episode, the Falcon goes into a diatribe, kumbaya speech, which was totally out of place given everything else in that series that worked so well. And it kind of felt like that at this moment in the film. And I just wanted it to be over. So based on the story, which I did find engaging, I liked the neo-noir thriller aspect of it. The Zodiac Killer 7 aspect of it, all right, that's fine. I could get past that, although I feel like that's more in the Joker's purview. But story and Robert Pattinson's performance as Batman, I'm going to give this movie 3.5 steering wheels out of 5. I'm also curious about this movie, given its very realistic tone and the themes of the film. Does this film exist in the DCEU? Because I frankly can't imagine this Batman ever interacting with the Superman or the Aquaman or the Flash or Wonder Woman that we saw in BVS or Justice League. Doesn't seem like that would work. Just like the Joker film with Joaquin Phoenix. Couldn't necessarily see that Joker ever interacting. I can see that Joker interacting with this Batman, but I don't think it's going to happen. And I won't say why. If anyone out there has any insight towards that, please hit me up, leave a comment. And while you're leaving a comment, go ahead and subscribe and check out all the archive of films that I reviewed going back at least a decade, I'd say. So, all right, guys, that's the Martini.